Okay, so welcome one and all to a Blip in Time. All right, today we are actually having our first talk of three. All right, and we are discussing about art and interactivity. Okay, so yeah, so with us today there's Veronica, there's Ilya, there's Nina, or Sharmeen, and Nicole. All right, so maybe I'll just pass the time over to Veronica. All right, who will actually moderate the session for us.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Veronica. I'm an artist amongst 12 artists today that is going to be, am I unmuting? Sorry, unmute myself. Sorry. Okay.
No, feedback.
Oh.
You mute yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
mute, and then we'll just get the overall mic.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm one of 12 artists that's going to be in an exhibition at the Jurong Regional Library called A Blip in Time. And what this exhibition is really about is to give artists who have never had a chance to work with technology to do so through this entire exercise. So for the whole 3 months already, we have been working with the National Library Board's Make It Space. They have one in Jurong, one in Tampines, and one in Woodlands. And through that experience, we've learned things like 3D printing, coding, robotics, and we're getting into things like projection mapping. And some of us are, trying to figure out how to put take a first step into technology and to see where it takes us. Because certainly, as you know, in Singapore, especially with the Arts Council, and there's been a push towards digitalization and towards art and technology. And through this experience, we wanted to figure out what this means to our own practice and what this means in general to the whole arts community. And I think it's been wonderful. If you go to our exhibition events page and you go to the discussion session, you can actually go and look at the journey that we have taken. So there's a library there, and you can look at our whole journey of how we have come to this point and the learning that we have had and all the things that we have explored to put this show together. I think we were expecting something very unexpected. And then I think all the artists here are like, oh, also like a bit, oh no, time is running out. What's gonna happen in the next 2 weeks? But we really do hope to see people going to our show and interacting with us and interacting with the artworks, and yeah, just enjoying themselves. So with us here today, we have Nicole, who is in her home studio, okay, and right here at the library at Harbourfront, we have Ila, Nina, and Anna. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Ila, who will start first to share about her art practice, and then maybe a little about what she's going to do at this exhibition.
Hi all, my name is Ila. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with telling about my practices and how it's actually very different from what I'm doing right now, because I've never incorporated technology into my works ever before. It's something that I really stayed away from because I would think that it's not really my interest, but at the same time I was exploring more of the organic and the natural process of my own body. So technology is something that I've never touched. So right now I'm struggling, but at the same time, it's also a learning process. So it's slowly getting better as I'm learning different things. Like what I'm doing right now is actually very different from how I've been doing my practices.
Speak louder.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just start with one of my practices that I've been doing, all the previous artworks and how it's kind of developed into different project as of the one that I'm working now. So I'm very performative in nature, especially when it comes to my own work. I do a lot of photography and a lot of performing works. One of the
and your I'm muted.
Okay, can. So one of the artworks that I've developed before is actually a series of photographs of my own childhood, and then slowly it became something of a very intimate process, an intimate relationship between me and my sister as we actually develop a sort of photograph that it's not really real, but it's a very developed childhood in the sense that it's all fictional. Everything that happened in that childhood did not actually happen. So it's a very interesting process because my sister has experienced something that she's never experienced before, which is my childhood, and I'm actually becoming the director of my own childhood, of how I want it to be and of how I want it to be portrayed. So all these pictures are all fictional and the story that has never happened in my life, but it is being documented as though it actually happened and it's there and it exists. So this whole thing becomes performative in nature, especially when it comes to nostalgia. When you're walking down a road of these photographs that you think is a reality and something that happened, but all of this is all just a fictional process that I developed. And this photography thing is something that I take upon in doing and incorporating in my own in the project that I'm working out now. Also using the theme of intimacy, because I am talking about the subtle or the subconscious integration of technology into our lives. So the things that we are familiar with, such as the phones, the mobiles, and Zoom meetings, because ever since the COVID-19, everyone's been working from home and we are experiencing a lot of video calls and conference calls. So this is when I started to think, okay, what if we, instead of looking at technologies that we're not familiar with or it's something that we need to learn, why don't we start off with something that's right next to us, which is our phones and our own conference calls and all this. So the idea of actually talking about Zoom meetings, okay, it's something that we are not familiar with because it's face to face, but at the same time it's taken online. So everything is there's a border between us, and this creates a very a feeling of disengagement, especially with the audience in front. So we don't know what exactly is happening, and we cannot feel the emotions that we feel when we are doing a face-to-face meeting. So and my experience is at work, every day we have to log in into Zoom or Google Meet, and every day we have to report on our work. When this is something that we don't actually do on a daily basis, but now we have to do it on a daily basis. So it becomes a routine and it has been habitualized and becoming part of the daily life. So every day it's already part of us to go on to Zoom or any meetings and then log in. And even though we don't know, like it's actually becoming a part of us already, and it's a ritual that we are familiarizing with. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'm developing a booth for people to actually go into this cubicle of Zoom conference calls and meetings so that they actually feel they have to relive the uncomfortable moments of actually going into the meetings again. So it's something that we are not familiar with, and it's something that we have developed to familiarize ourselves with, but it's a very uncomfortable situation that we did not ask for. So it's a very different thing that we are experiencing right now. And I wanted the audience to feel this discomfort that we are subconsciously adapting ourselves to without even realizing it. So this is the whole process, or this is the whole thing, the thought process that I've been working on. and how it plays around with the idea of this intimate feeling that we are actually feeling ourselves, not with our body, but more towards developing this intimacy with technology itself, because that's the barrier that we have right now before we go face to face with that person. So technology is always there to somehow intervene, and it really relays a different perspective of people. A lot of times when you go to all these Zoom calls or everything, it actually shows a new perspective and says, okay, you don't really know what your boss is doing, you don't really know what your boss is relaying, because he's not there. He's there to give you what you need, like, oh, I need to do this, to do that, but the feelings are not translated as well in real life. So it's a very disconnected feeling whenever I'm in all these kind of things. So this is the thing that I'm trying to have the audience understand, is that feeling of discomfort that we have familiarized ourselves with. Yeah. So I think that's about it for me.
Thank you, Ila. We'll have a chat session later. Now we will move on to Nina.
Hi, thanks so much for sharing that. Actually, it sounds amazing. I can't wait to see it. Set it up and all that. So when I was first approached to work with tech actually when Varun first told me about the project, I was very excited, and I wanted to collaborate with another friend to bring it in. To flash that. So my name is Nina Chabra, but I make all my creative projects, I work under this name, and that's my handle at the bottom for my IG. So it was when Varun first approached me, it was something I was conceptualizing that was going to be something new. I wanted to do something new. But when it came down to actually being able to execute the idea, there was just a bunch of circumstances that happened. I mean, life happens. And then so I couldn't bring that original idea to fruition. And how I modified it now is, so I've always worked with video. I've done video art. I'm always into different forms of storytelling. And to me, the medium is merely a tool. It is not what I define my practice by. And so, but since I'm always stronger in video, I used to shoot and edit, but that's also something about technology that's very interesting. It's so difficult to keep up with, don't say financially, just say the knowledge, the codecs, the LUTs, everything. If you work in video, you know, and you know, like doubling up and learning how to animate and just stuff. It's just so much to keep up with. So I thought, like, okay, why don't I translate somehow this? It's not a frustration, but it's my attempt at understanding this in a different way. And since film is so my project, so I'm going to screen a previous project that I worked with. This is you can see. So it was I didn't direct this. I worked. I shot about a third of it, and I was an editor and the colorist for this. And just putting it together with a new director called Vishal Daryanumel. And he's very willingly let me use this film for this project, which is how, so we have always just screened it large screen. The first time we screened this film, we completed it in 2017. A lot of the issues we highlighted are still relevant, but the poet himself has moved on and is no longer in Singapore. So that has happened from 2017. Then COVID happened, and how we treated a lot of the migrant workers. The background to this person, his name is Rangarajan. He's a poet. So the director met him during the migrant worker poetry competition a few years back. Thought his story is very interesting, and his delivery of his poetry in Tamil is very interesting. So when the director approached me, he was like, "Yeah, this is the best. It's a beautiful way to put together a human being who's a poet first, and then how we build the docu-narrative around his life, right? And the way we always, and it's a short, it's less than 20 minutes, the runtime. And we screened it, the first time we started screening, it was always like super large screen, and that's very scary. And the first time I saw it on the projector while I was looking for digital noise like I was just like, okay, my corners are clean, my placements on my text is it? But now it's like so blown up. So that is also a thing with technology, right? Like where is your final work going to be presented? And for me, I was trial by fire straight away. It's like for this project, it was a project. It was the projector, which is a very large cinema in Singapore, independent cinema in Singapore, which had huge screen, right? So now, and then he has gone through different processes. We've screened in film festivals and all, but always on a screen or in someone's phone, perhaps. It's not online. So it's only if we are speaking to people, like you want to watch the film, then we'll share the film. And also, of course, the poet has this film for his copy, with what he wants to do with it. So I'll read to you the synopsis of it, and then I'll bring it to how I'm presenting it in this project. Originally from Pudukkottai, N. Rangarajan works in Singapore's construction sector. He performed at the first 2 migrant worker poetry competitions, featuring 3 of his poems, which subtly elucidate the realities of migrant life. The film also highlights pertinent issues such as employment processes, exorbitant agent fees, financial debt, and commonly held perceptions of migrant workers. The Tamil language and its place in Singapore society, as well as spaces for minority artists, are some of the other areas explored. The work shows the multidimensional talents of an individual from a much overlooked community in Singapore, a community that has been indispensable to the building of the city-state, but one that has rarely been given the credit they deserve. Through Rangarajan's perspectives, the film navigates through themes of loss, sacrifice, strengths, and dreams inherent in all of us, regardless of our occupation, nationality, race, and class. So that a lot of these issues are still happening, and they blew up. It blew up last year. It became very apparent to the larger populace. I feel like these migrant issues were always kind of around more advocacy people or lawmakers. It was never something that everybody spoke about. Like, wow, that is really crazy, right? That's their conditions. And he himself has moved back to India because he got married and he was going to take care of his family there. Previously, these are some of the places we screened, and then by the end of 2018, we had a lot more screenings, but they, as I said, always either on an online situation or on a screen. And since also Rangarajan's life is different, but the situations are still the same, his poetry is still very powerful. I'm going to play, this film is going to be played on loop. And I'm going to work together. I mean, Veron is going to be a very good advisor for me, but I'm going to do some project mapping. I'm going to work with her to let her know like how I want to present it, right? And it will definitely be like some kind of distortion of the image or the sound, but still somehow making, and if somebody, the audience, the viewer is going to sit there for at least a while, because the film itself is not that long, then they would be able to see the full effect of the project mapping, which it would be like a few, because I think the strategy is to, some images fade in, fade out, but it's always on loop and it's always randomized, right? And what you hear, what you don't. So it's also, I hope through watching and listening to this poetry that we also start to think about how we view content and documentaries, and sometimes that very kind of stark, cold, square frame way of taking in content that can be quite heavy. We did touch on quite heavy issues in the film.
Yeah.
It sometimes the way he presented that might it's just because different people have different ways of perceiving information and beauty and poetry. So yeah, it's a new, totally new thing to me. I've had friends who've been doing project mapping for a long time. Always wanted to be like, hey, that's damn cool. I want to do that, and I want to learn that, but then I have not had time to fully learn it. So this will be first attempt, and I hope that presenting this film in a different form gives it a longer life, because the issues that the poet speaks about are still very relevant. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh wait, last thing. I do have a new project, but it's okay. I won't talk about it now. Yeah. No, you think okay? So I am working with the local poet. and we just finished the film, and her name is Stephanie Chan. So she had a book published, and we got a digital presentation grant by NAC to come up with a concept of 4 poems in a film. So again, I got to work with a poet. So, but it's so different from that film. So I shared a little trailer. Do we have time to? It's a 1 minute
Let me
trailer.
see whether I have to request access.
Oh, then no worries about it.
Okay.
I just go YouTube, look for an intermediate guide to kill the film. It's online for 2 weeks, and then we're going to take it off. So this is also kind of getting used to the digital. How to screen films, but the screenings aren't allowed. But workshops are. So if you want to do screenings, you can work it into a workshop. That's the idea. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
I should just move myself
and move on first.
And the whole I'll do for the computer.
Yeah.
I'll mute myself and I'll hand it over to.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Mm.
Okay, so hi, I'm Emma. And okay, I guess I wasn't as prepared as the rest of, but I'm sharing one glimpse of my work. So this is an animation, and I love what you guys shared about fabrication of memory and like digital noise and perfection. And actually, so by trade, I'm a creative strategist, so like I do graphic design works also, and I totally relate with the whole obsession with finding digital noise and the perfect pixels and all these things. So like yeah, exactly. So I was super excited when I was invited to join all these great people to do the show, and reflecting on technology. I think I sort of went backwards instead. So I was like, when I chose to like go with this hand-drawn animation book, I decided, okay, I will not go with the perfect pixelation and all that. That's why I went for the hand-drawn style. And so also like this is part of the series of animations, and so they're all hand-drawn, and I have to scan them page by page and then stitch them together. So it's kind of yeah, it's a very traditional old school way to do things in a way, and I love that. But like this is the first time I'm trying to play with projection mapping and like showing this work in a new context. So yeah, like yeah, it really got me thinking also and reflecting on our relationship with technology. I think before this, it used to just be a tool for me. So this is the first time I'm trying like to find a new context where a work relies on technology in a way. Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, yeah, we've learned a lot through this whole process as well. We're working with all the artists and all these sessions where we try to learn new technology. And yeah, I think I have a little bit of that view also where we are not keeping up with the amount of programs and applications that's coming up. Yeah, so that's a first world problem.
I know. Everyone's a little bit like in that space where we are a little bit struggling and yet a little bit excited about what it will really come out. Yeah. So let's pass it to Nicole. She's in her home studio, and I think she needs to be the co-host to share her screen. That's a note to you.
Can ready. Okay, you need to stop share.
Okay, can.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Nice.
Okay, let me full screen. Okay. I'm a performance artist and technology like Ila. I don't touch technology.
Unmute.
Hey. Now, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear.
I think Veron cannot hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, wait, back. So I'm a performance artist, and like Ila, I don't do any technology. Like my artwork, my performance is only switching on a light bulb and switching off a light bulb. That's the only technology part. So I'll just run through on some of the performances that I did the last few years. So this is the more recent one, which is outdoors. There isn't any technology involved. So it's talking about the contrast between the environment and us, and how it will constantly be changing with humans touch on it. So nature is not natural anymore. So I'm dragging a piece of artificial grass over real grass to, it's kind of like a silent protest, but not really also. It's a gentle remark on what's going on with our world these days. And this my work always talk about death, and this artwork is an altar for future dead self. So I invite people to bring an item to leave it on the altar, to give it to themselves in the future after they pass on. So it's giving yourself an offering in advance before you die, so you have a choice, so you can pick what you can receive before you die. Then this performance was done with my family members. So we are kind of a big family. We are 7 people in the house. So there are 3 generations of people, of humans, 3 generations of my family in this project. And talking about how we strip ourselves of our identities and become human again, to regain human touch, human connection. Like we are all blood related in some way from long ago. It's just that nowadays there are many things, many factors that affect our perspective and the way we treat people, treat each other. Just a simple walkthrough of all the things that I've done. And then yeah, I started to explore about elements, natural elements, and between 2019 to 2020, I have traveled a few countries to present my performances. So like some of the works are specifically for this country because of the residency that I had there. So this was in Nanjing, and this was in Singapore, also part of Fertile Art Refinery, our first showcase in Singapore at Far East Plaza. So I did a performance before with the same group. And then in Bandung, I did about water because the water situation is kind of crazy over there compared to what we have here. And then in Jakarta, I did about rain and about fire also, because of their tradition and how they have this ritual to to make the rain go away temporarily if they have to. And their prayer, the way they do their prayer was quite interesting to me. The fact that I don't pray. So I learned, I spent 2 months at Jakarta to learn about, to learn and connect with the spiritualists over there, to understand how the process goes. And then this is the most recent performance that I did, and it's the last part of my element series, where I talk about air. And this is quite reflective of how I felt about the entire 2020. Like, we are just a speck of dust in the wind, and we'll be carried away with everything that happens with us. So it was it's like head in the clouds visually. I still have to self-reflect over my performance, because this performance was done through filming only. So there wasn't any live audience, as compared to my previous performances where there's always live audience. So this is the first time I had to film in a studio setting, and kind of different for me to project a performance differently from how I usually did it. And then I had a chance to go to Poland to talk about, to perform about my exploration with the color white and how it's associated with death in Chinese culture. So there's a lot of dying about my artwork. Yeah, and this is a funeral that I gave to myself in 2019. One of my first performances after I finished art school. And in total, I would like to say that I dwell about death a lot, which is why I think about slaughterhouses. Let me go through to what I'm doing for this show, A Blip in Time. My favorite animal is cattle, is cows. So having to merge technology and art together along with my favorite animal is quite a different thing for me to do, because I usually do performances and my body is present, but doing an artwork it's a very different experience for me as a performance artist. So doing this work, I have the example here. I'll be presenting one painting over there, and that is a painting of 7 cows in a field. And I also have a couple of these cow plushies, which will be merged together with the technology part that we have been coming up with along with Lion Forge. And I don't know, it's just a very new thing for me to express my love for cows. my performances don't really talk about how much I like cows, but if you are in this room right now, there's a lot of cows here. And I have a lot of book references for cows to like I read a lot about cows, and I believe that for me they are the closest to what being human is. Like they have the same process of giving birth like humans, like females. They have to support their calves, like how mothers do to their babies. They have to give milk, they have to give emotional support, and then, but sad to say, they have to die a bit earlier than us because of where they are bred up to be like milk source or meat source or any other product source. So I want to bring attention to cows in my artwork, because I think that I don't know, I feel peaceful looking at them, and I feel like I connect to them more than humans sometimes. Yeah. During the exhibition, there will be a shelf of book references that the artists have referred, and there will be a lot of cow books from me. Okay, that's all from me. Wait, you're muted. I cannot hear you.
One.
Okay, hello.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Hey, thanks everyone for sharing. And I think we assembled quite a group today because all of us work so visually, especially performance artists, right? You have such control over the image, like even in a live setting and all that. For me personally, I find working with tech, the hardest thing to deal with is a loss of control. Because I have no idea what the final result is going to be, because I have to depend on somebody else to help me to figure things out. How do you all deal with that? I deal with it by tearing my hair out, but maybe you have a better way of dealing with it. How's your experience been? Like that whole process, like, you know, you wanted a certain image, and then yet, you know, the tech either cannot fit into it, or, you know, the budget does not allow you to do certain things. How have you dealt with it?
I think I'm flexible to what it can be, because I know that it can be more than what I imagine it to be. So
Yeah.
whatever it is now can be the process of leading me to what I want it to be.
Very zen, huh? How about the
Very
rest of you?
Because I think technology is something that I cannot comprehend, even if I try my best, because it's so broad. It's like how if you ask someone who doesn't really understand art, and you tell to someone who doesn't really understand art about many different kind of philosophical ideas and artistic ideas, they also won't understand one, right? So it's something that you need a lot of time to understand, and I don't think you can understand fully.
Yeah, I think if we have some like non-art people here, right? And then after going through like watching the artists explain their works, it's like what is kind of show that you think you're expecting and all that, right? Please feel free to throw us some questions and ask our artists like yeah. Okay. Oh, may I know? Sorry, I have some questions here. May I know the name of the first speaker? It's Ila. ILLA, yes, that's Ila. And then another question here says, is performing on deaf June contents more difficult as compared with joyful ones? Why not have more joyful sites for the art scene? Oh, that question is so appropriate for our Nicole. Come, tell us, why do you not do more joyful art?
I think in life we always pretend to be happy. So art for me, performance art for me is the way to express how unhappy I am. Even if I'm happy with life, right? When you express it to someone, I tell, oh, I'm so happy, the person will just feel envious of you. But then when you tell to someone, oh, I feel like dying, what can a person help you to do? They only can give you their life experiences, like tell you why you should not feel this way or why you should feel this way. And it's I don't know, I'm very drawn to death. I don't know why. I think there are many other people like me also, but they just cannot find the channel to express. For me, it's performance art. And I don't really do it very obviously. I wouldn't say that like once you look at my art, you look at death, that kind of thing. It is a very subtle way of looking towards how you view death. Death is like something you cannot avoid. What? Even if I'm young or even if I'm old, I think I will always constantly think about dying. Not that I want to die, but I have to die. Yeah. There's many joyful things about art. It's just how you look at it or how you want to give other people to look at it. Some people might think that my artwork is about giving, like being born, rather than being dead. It's the way you look at things. Yeah.
Great, that's great. Yeah. So, well, back to the people in the room, like about loss of control of this process that we are all experiencing. You have any thoughts you want to share?
I think funnily that's one of my current problems that I'm facing with technology and so with the projection, the lighting condition matters. So these are the technical difficulties that I think we all are facing those difficulties. And yeah, I think the control part is something that it's always there and it's kind of hard to let go of. And I think it's the finding the balance that's part of the process, what you can compromise and what you can't. Yeah, like I don't know, especially with projection, like you probably have a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, the lighting condition is going to be an issue now. Yeah. We have to see. I really don't know how, but to fight what you cannot control, because yes, yeah, when we use our body or when we paint or something, it's just so different, right? Yeah, this is a good question because I thought about it a lot. I used to fight it. I used to fight the program. I used to fight technology changing. I used to fight it, and that just gave me grief. And there was no point. I was looking into a wall. So once I started to understand, like workflows are quite important when you work with tech. So if you don't have a correct workflow, you are just I see it in this way. This is the simplest way I can understand. There's a workflow that the designer had in mind when he designed the program. If we don't follow the workflow, we're just fighting against the designer. So the design, I'm not saying is good. Sometimes the design that bodoh is really so that I don't get it. Why is this not the flow? But if you understand that, then somehow you won't be fighting it. So perhaps it's sometimes good to do some research about what is the ideal workflow when you are taking on new tech projects or just working with new kind of technology.
Certainly, and it also opened for me. It opened it up to a new way of working because yes, engineers and technologists think very differently, and it's not like, and we feel restricted by it, but at some point you understand that, sometimes there is a better way, and that, and perhaps we can both influence each other in positive ways. Yeah. Ila, you have anything about this?
For me, definitely, I compromised a lot actually in this, because my first idea felt too ambitious, as though it's something that my first idea was actually interesting, but it was something that I cannot do because I don't have the money, and that took years and years of development, because there's someone who did that, but it took him years to develop because he's already a computer engineer. Okay, and what he does is basically repurpose objects like your pen, your keyboard, and then makes actions. Simple thing is like clicking the pen, switching, makes it like when you click on the pen, the light will turn on. That's very interesting, right? Yes. So I wanted to do something like that, but when I saw how he did it through the engineering part and the programming, it was really difficult because he developed it for a very long time. It was a very long time, and he had passion for it. So as someone who's new at all these kind of things, it took a lot for me because I needed to compromise. So I went with something that I am familiar with and something that is simple for me to learn at a shorter time frame. And that's why I went to phones, because this is something that we can hack. And things like Android phones, I found all Android phones. It's something that I can hack, but I know how to do that. So that's what I worked on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this compromising, and also to really, you really realize that if you really want to do a true art tech show, the budget, it needs to be phenomenal. When we are very lucky to have some support and then a very small budget, but I think everyone is trying to make the best of what it is, right? But it's the first step. Hopefully there's just much more opportunities to let more artists get in touch with this, and then cross this barrier into something, really.
Yeah, I do feel like if you manage to cross the barrier, like technology can be super enabling. Like it could, that was what I had in mind when I wanted to have these characters blown up and sort of in the space itself. Like I imagine, I think it's just overcoming the first barrier.
Certainly. Well, we have a question here. It says, art inspires tech or vice versa. What are your takes?
Art inspires tech.
Yeah, but it leads on to my next question. Like, now that you've taken the first step, and we're talking about interactivity here, right? Previously, how you engage the audience and how you felt your art engaged the audience, right? Now you're putting tech into it. Everybody thinks that, since it's techy, it must be very interactive. But it doesn't change your perspective of audience engagement and the bells and whistles. Do we need it or not? Yeah.
To me, film is very interactive because your brain is working while you're watching. So that's very interactive to me. Which it changes my how a film is phenomenal, right? So to me, I really have, it's just what level we see interactivity at. Brain activity is interactivity with something in front of you. It's just tech has taken it to another level with another gadget, with a tool, with different things, accessibility. So yeah, to me, art inspires tech.
I think for right now, in terms of general public, those who are not familiar with, let's say they don't really go to visit art local galleries or anything. When it comes to technology or interactivity in technology, you will see it a lot in those IT shows. They'll put out a lot of phones. So this is the first thing that they do. They will always interact with the phones. So their interactivity comes from more of a hands-on approach. Yes, and for me, that's how a lot of the general public actually kind of sees interactivity, especially when it comes to technology. They need to touch it. They need to experience it. Yeah, but the COVID thing, they can so they'll wear some gloves or whatever. But yeah, it's something that they really do. And now, like after COVID or post-COVID, they say they are more touched. Even I want to touch this, but I can't. The feeling of wanting to interact, I feel is strong. Yeah. So for me, definitely, art inspires tech.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to take all the phone approach on my project.
For sure, for sure. I think even technologists and scientists, right? They are a bit of artists as well. It's really, you know, that leap that they take, and then, you know, that idea that they have, and then they're figuring out how to get there, right? And that's why a lot of times they also want artists to get involved, because you know, it's like, you know, movies and all that, and books, right? The imagination, and then now you see actually real life catching up to it. So yeah, for sure. Yeah. Nicole wants to add anything on that?
I'm still exploring how much tech can be in art. On my own practice lah. I have seen many artworks that have a lot of technology aspects to it, and it's presented very well. But I don't know if I can ever achieve it that way. But let's explore. Is technology and art is something that will never have an end one. That's what I think.
Yeah. Now very I don't know. Should I ask this question? Like now, you know, all the grants, government grants coming because, you know,
It's technology.
tech, you know. What do you think of that? Like, are we pushed in that direction when or really, you know, that kind of push is what it's needed for us to, I don't know, get on to the next level. What do you think? Very sensitive.
I'm not so sure about the race to be more digitalized. Yeah, like I don't know, why is this a race also? Like what are we trying to achieve with that also? I think it's not that there's no hate or anything, it's just to me they can work hand in hand. There's some good parts about it. And yes, it's true.
It's not to see things in isolation. I think it's really very interdisciplinary. So I think I will always stick by that. Nothing exists in isolation.
Yes.
Or in its own silo. We cannot. And there's no biodiversity. And if you want a healthy ecosystem in all environments, it's
That's
about
right.
not looking at things in isolation.
It's true.
And also I think tech enables accessibility a lot, and I think that's exactly that's kind of the empowering part of it, and that's where I can understand why we will need to go into digitalization, you know, with the accessibility part. But other than that, I'm not too sure about the race, you know.
It's certainly like, you know, even in education system, we need so many different paths to success, right? And not just one. And you know, whether being pushed in this way, you know, what would it eventually lead to? But I think all in all, to have this opportunity here to work with the technology side and realize things that, you know, if I calculated the artwork, like if I had to pay for the subcontractors, the coders or whatever, it would be way beyond something that I would be able to do. So that's the part that I'm grateful for, like in a project like this, you know. But whether that becomes like a practice, I don't know. Like, would it, like, do you think next time, like, if it would become part of your practice, or is a touch and go? I don't know. Yeah, let's see. Wait and see.
It depends on the individual. I don't think if the artist. For myself, I don't really see using it as much. Like it really is an experiment and something that I'm willing to learn. But whether or not if I develop on it and if I see myself using it, then it really depends on you know, my own interest in that. If I don't really have any interest, or I don't see myself using it a lot, then I would think I'll just take it as a, you know, an experiment and a learning lesson.
For me, it helps me tell a better story. I mean, because I'm still it's a storyteller.
Because like if you're working in film already, that's so it is getting so taxing, right? And you can't like run away from it.
So that brain is already there. The acceptance is there. It's no longer this fight. And if it helps, if I happen like this opportunity where I get to do project mapping, something we have, I guess, filed away. A lot of tech is inaccessible to make us a cost. Or I just don't know the people. Or the people I know are busy doing their own thing, or they're busy with work lah. Like a lot of hackers friends or IT friends, they're very busy with work. So yeah, so if you, given these opportunities, platforms are amazing. And if, for me personally, it helps me tell a better story, and someone is willing to collaborate with me. Yes, but whether I want to run out now and learn everything about tech, no. My brain is quite mixed up at the moment.
I think we are
in the future lah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, amongst the people I know, I probably can use most things. Like I have to use like design, but honestly, beyond that, to me, it's like super new and super foreign. Although I'm supposed to know, I don't know. But I feel like I'm supposed to.
I don't understand TikTok also. It's quite new technology,
But I don't want to admit I don't know everything.
Oh no, I'm okay now. I'll go and learn, but don't know, not yet. Because they do quite cool shit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you send the UI of TikTok, it's quite amazing. You can do a lot of things in a simple way.
Yeah, I think also maybe things for design could be easier, like more accessible, like TikTok. Maybe more people can achieve that.
Exactly.
Because now you can edit everything on your phone, and you can
Exactly.
like you don't need the editor. It's like the computer, the phone, the app doing it for you.
That's why I was sharing in the anime's workshop yesterday as well. Nowadays you can do wonderful things with a lot of free stuff out there. You don't need to pay for everything. You can have video editing, you can have filters, you can have all kinds of different things. So it does I feel empowered sometimes, that it's there, you can, and it's just a matter of just spending some time with it. So it's nice that it's been that way, and it's like what we're going to talk about tomorrow, which is democratization, and that's really putting that technology into people's hands that they are easy to use, and it's always there if they really want it. I have a question here. Some observe that there are too many robots nowadays due to heavy usage reliance of tech products as compared to traditional art forms. Is that your observation as well? Or too many robots? Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah, can have more. Help us do the stuff that we don't want to do. And I don't know, my dream is always that maybe one day all the jobs that really, people, all the dirty jobs that people really, we shouldn't, for the sake of human dignity, that we don't want people to have that need to have to do that for other people. Can those be replaced? That one I fully feel that we should explore, as humanity. Yeah, about robots, yes. But certainly AI lah, and then now got this push towards NFT. Okay, maybe you ask question. What do you think about NFT art? It's everyone's talking about it. Yeah, it's so distant from us, right?
No, it's the same system in a different form.
Oh.
It's just
Yeah. Well, it's another way of commodifying art also. Yeah, and then some people are using it to make the big bucks.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? Yeah. So, okay. What about questions you want to ask each other or ask?
I think we can.
Cool.
Looking forward to seeing our Janice.
Yeah. So I hope that people will come and see our show in Jurong. Yeah, and also you can connect with us at the. Do connect with us at the. Am I in the right place? Do connect back with us at the events page, right? To keep informed of what's going on with the show. We'll make more updates there about the work in progress of all our artists, and yeah.
And join the other workshops and talks.
Yes, there are more workshops and talks coming up. There are two more artist talks, one tomorrow evening and the third one, the last one on Tuesday evening. And then in the weekend, we have a cat house design where there will be a virtual cat adoption drive. So you can see some cats in one window while we talk about designing the cat house. Yeah, so that will be quite interesting. And then two more other workshops would be how to create an AR filter, also using free software, and also finally the typography workshop. So that one will contribute to, so we are all going to create our own word bubble for 2021. Obviously your hopes and dreams, everything, to create the 2021 word bubble. And it will appear in a holographic form in the library when the show opens.
Yay!
Hey, are we done?
Right. So this is all the time I think we have for today's talk on art and interactivity. So maybe let me stop the recording. All right.